Warning: this podcast discusses paranormal activity and other topics some might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley.
And I'm Daniel.
Welcome to Ghost Gossip.
Welcome, y'all.
So, today we are talking about the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. But before we get into that, we haven't recorded in about 2 weeks. So, How you doing?
How's it going, y'all? Hope you're doing well. Getting the new year started off right.
I was asking you, how are you doing?
Oh, I was asking the listeners. Maybe they'll comment now on how they're doing. I'm doing good.
I was really wanting to know how you were doing, and how is the new year going? How has 2025 started? I say pretty good considering.
Pretty good. Seems like we're on a good trajectory to start the year.
Yeah, we're never going to claim to be like, year 25 is for me, or 2025 is new year, no, same me.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm going into menopause. I'm exhausted. And I'm cranky all the time.
Yes, she is.
Like just a level. I was talking to one of my girlfriends who is also in, starting the early signs of menopause. And she asked me the other day, are you just like raging all the time? Do you just feel a level of rage? And I'm like, yes, with everybody.
Yep.
He's like, I'm not commenting on that.
Nope.
But it's almost like.
It's tough, y'all. It's tough out here.
For you?
Nope. For my love.
It is tough. And then, going through it at the same time, our daughters are going through their big hormonal change as well. It's like, who came up with that? Who decided that women need to enter into the next phase of life at the same time that
2 middle school girls
enter into their next phase of life?
It's fun. It's fun in our house.
There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of sometimes very loud talking.
It just swirls. It's swirling.
And another thing is, the older we get, we don't like loud noises.
No, I do not like loud noises.
No, even though you are the loudest one in the house.
That is not true. That is not true. Do not believe her. Y'all have obviously commented on my level of volume.
But that's what's so crazy is I know how loud you can be.
Oh, I can get loud.
Oh, I know you can.
But I'm not the loudest one.
Well, you can be the loudest one.
Yes, I can be. I have the potential.
Except when you put a microphone on, then it's like, this is time to whisper.
And sometimes my potential is realized.
Especially the kids, so Daniel, the way we parent usually is me saying, hey guys, can you do this? Like I am the quiet, more patient, like, hey guys, can you, like asking and thanking and doing all that. And then Daniel, after he's heard me ask about 4 times, he comes Papa Bear mode 6,000 and he'll, kids, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like,
why are you so mad, bruh?
Why are you yelling? Well, you don't have to yell.
Because you've been asked multiple times and you've been asked nicely. And now I'm not asking nicely.
No. I'll
take the brunt. And they can be mad. I would be rather than be mad at me than be mad at you.
Oh, thanks. They stay. I have to be with them. I'm with them a lot. But they get over it faster with me.
Yeah. They hold it against me.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. They all do. I was going to say just the girls, but no, all of them do.
They do.
Well, see, me too.
And you too.
I was going to say me too, especially at this phase of life.
I'm a big boy, though.
No, I know. Well, you're my big boy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Talk to me more. Bring it on.
So just a little update of what we got going on. Last episode we recorded, we had the REM pod going behind us, and we also have the Necrometer, which is a Spirit Talker app running, and I have it on airplane mode as well as the Wi-Fi turned off. So there should be no interception of any kind of radio waves to the phone right now. It is just sitting there. Now, when I say radio waves, I mean interfering radio waves.
Yeah, interference.
Yes, there should be 0 interference as to like other apps and Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? So it is running. And I mentioned when we started, we're talking about Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. So the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary is located in the corner of the Cumberland Mountains that sits in Tennessee. And it's in this It's in the city of Petros, Tennessee. I'm guessing I'm saying that right.
How's it spelled?
Petros. It sounds like Petros.
Petros.
Petros. We have the spirit box running, and so far it has said things like fear, 1930s, blind, floor,
Trap soul.
and it just said Kelly. It is pretty on par. And we're going to talk about it.
I grew up on Kelly Road.
You did, but not in Tennessee.
No, not in Tennessee.
Not in Tennessee. So that's what we're talking about. And this, we're going to do a little differently because Daniel usually goes in blind. And he asked me, he's like, is it okay if I read up on this a little bit? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, I did just a little brief history overview. I didn't want to go too deep because I wanted to see where you were going to take it. And so just to brush up, pun intended.
I like it. So the prison, which is located in Petros, Tennessee, the population of Petros in the 2020 census was 459 people.
Big metropolis, urban area in Tennessee.
It is a hopping place, y'all.
Yep, hopping.
So the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary is also known as the Bloody Brushy.
Bloody Brushy.
Bloody Brushy, as well as the Gates to Hell.
Yep.
That prison, I have a lot of echo. If you hear a lot of echo, the cat tore down my curtains, which we used for the sound reduction, the echo reduction. And we tried to hang them back up and the anchors ripped right out of the wall. So I have zero coverage from the walls. I'm doing the best I can.
Yep. We're good.
I Googled the current population and it varied. So I'm leaving it as the 2020 census, but I believe the number that I found on my last Google was lower than 459.
People moving out.
People are leaving or dying.
Yep, one of the two.
The prison opened in 1896 in the wake of a bloody labor battle. We're going to talk about just kind of the history that happened there. The prison itself was built on 9,000 acres of state-owned property, which is now a state park. It's called the I'm so old, I'm the Walmart. I'm about did it again. Frozen Head State Park. Before it was a prison, it was a coal mine for the state of Tennessee. So the end of the Civil War led to the boom in the railroad construction and the rapid expansion of the coal mining industry throughout Tennessee. So that, it was like the Civil War ended and all of a sudden there was this burst of growth within the coal mining area. Because many of the state's coal veins were located in remote areas, which were very rugged, and most of the mining companies provided housing because there wasn't things around. Like there just weren't. And so the coal mining industries and the companies provided the housing, the
general store, and the general stores, they would hike up prices.
Yes.
So that, by the time the workers got paid,
they got nothing.
They got barely anything.
Right. So
they were basically working for food and housing. And it was horrible work conditions. No safety. OSHA did not exist.
OSHA did not exist. I did not exist to make sure everybody was wearing their hats.
Yeah.
Or coats. Put your coat on. Why do middle schoolers not wear coats? Anyway, different podcast for a different day. There were no kind of safety measures. And by the time these poor workers were done working and got paid, they had nothing.
Yeah.
And they were working in such dangerous working conditions. The miners, so this led to the Coal War.
The Coal Creek Wars.
The Coal Creek War. So not cold, but coal, like COAL. And the miners, being as clever as they were from the area. They knew the area. So they decided they were going to begin holding strikes in the winter when coal demand was high.
Yep.
And the tactic worked until a new convict lease program gave companies a cheaper, more compliant work source.
That's right.
Which is kind of where...
Yeah, they were giving black citizens who committed misdemeanor crimes, they would give them, 20, 30 life sentences for very minor offenses. And
no pun intended.
And this was so that those prisoners could then go to the prison and then be leased out to the coal companies.
Free labor.
For very cheap or almost free labor.
Oh, it was the prison system. So the prison system just sent these guys out there and the state was making money off of these inmates.
Yeah, there was a law that allowed them to do that. I can't remember what the law was called, but there's some term for it.
They exploited the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery but allowed involuntary servitude.
That's it. Yeah, involuntary servitude. That's right.
For criminal punishment.
Yep.
When the federal troops left the South in 1877, after Reconstruction, state officials were hostile to former slaves, handed down long prison terms and life sentences, even for petty crimes.
Yep.
When I'm talking about crimes, I'm talking about they cussed.
Or jaywalked.
Or stole bread.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, like, I have it later in here about what some of these people were convicted of that kept them there.
Yeah.
It was dancing, I think, was one of them.
There's no telling.
Drinking.
Yeah.
So, according to the Brushy's website, Tennessee began leasing prisoners in 1866, and by 1891, the decision led to the Coal Creek War, which citizen miners attacked and burned the state prison, stockades, and mines, then loaded prisoners and guards alike onto a train headed out of town. Mining companies sent them back, and state officials called in troops for protection.
Yeah, the local miners were upset because
they were mad.
They were losing jobs, and they're using these prisoners for next to nothing, and these local miners are completely out of a job and have no way to provide for their families.
And tons of people died on both sides.
Yes.
So on the coal side, where the people like the miners and the companies, they were dying. Inmates, guards were dying.
And finally, the coal companies were having to get basically like a standing army to protect the prisoners while they were working, and it became
standing militia.
Yeah, and it became unprofitable for the mining companies to basically pay these militias to protect the. It's kind of like, hey, what are we doing here? We're not being profitable.
So
by the local miners, it worked. Beneficial, but a lot of people had to die for that to happen.
But then, because once all that happened and the lease expired, after that the prison opened 1896, and the prisoners themselves were actually building the railroad.
Yeah,
and they built the prison.
Yeah, there was a spur railroad trail they built to the prison, and then there were some wooden buildings that were the original. But yeah, the prisoners built it themselves.
Yeah,
and then I can't remember what year they started actually building the cement building.
1930s.
So yeah, it was years after they had originally built the prison with the wooden structures.
Once the prison was open, it had 210 inmates, and those inmates were the ones that actually built the prison in which they lived.
At some point, the population of the prison got up to like 900.
We're not there yet, but yes.
And that's when they had the conditions were so deplorable, they were finally able to build what is now the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. Do continue, my love.
Thank you so much. Early on, the men that were brought in were mostly between the ages of 17 and 24.
Wow.
But because Brushy was known as a kind of like the end of the line, they kind of had everything. And the youngest person to be imprisoned was 10 years old for stealing bread.
Yeah, and this was like the worst of the worst. These were people that they couldn't control in other prisons. Like you said, it was the end of the line. Like there was no death row there, but people weren't leaving.
No. So coming back to the children, because we'll get to the end of the road. That didn't become until later.
Okay.
You're jumping ahead of me. Well, I love it. I love the
enthusiasm.
I do. I love the enthusiasm, but we're not there yet because in the beginning it was housing people for minor crimes.
Okay.
The end of the road came about in the 1960s.
Okay.
1930s, the youngest inmate was 10 for stealing bread. They had a group of children that were imprisoned. They called them the Children of Brushy. They were 13 and younger.
Oh, wow.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
In the beginning, they were not hardcore criminals. These were not murderers. These were not kidnappers and people that were just violent. They were in there for lying, swearing, drinking, dancing, and other petty crimes. They would be arrested, imprisoned, and then most of them would die there.
I can understand if I got arrested for dancing.
Me too. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's criminal.
Yes.
It's like, dude, stop.
It's so bad it's good.
No.
Yes.
Also, they still used the prisoners to mine the coal at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And if they didn't meet their quota, if these inmates did not meet their quota, they were beaten.
They were beaten while they were mining.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guards were at times more violent than the inmates in the beginning of this prison.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when you had minor crimes like stealing and drinking and dancing. Like you had these guards that were pretty much unregulated, doing whatever they wanted to these individuals, which is inhumane.
To say the least.
At one point, there was a protest between the inmates and the guards, and a guard was in the mine with the inmates. And trigger warning for violence, they chopped off his head and sent it out on a cart, held his body hostage in protest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
And by 1931, Brushy was home to almost 1,000 inmates.
Which was designed to hold 600?
I think 3.
Oh.
300 to 400 originally. So it was, from what I read, it was 4 times over capacity.
Yeah.
In 1934, they built a reinforced concrete structure surrounded by the 18-foot stone wall, and it was in the shape of an upside-down cross.
And the prisoners were the ones that had to bust up the sandstone from a local quarry to be able to make the concrete.
Yep, they worked in the quarry. The prisoners, they literally built their own prison. They literally built from the wood, the concrete, the stone, everything. They did all that.
I don't think it was an upside down cross. The building is just a cross.
If you go up there and you talk to the guards that used to work there, as well as the people that run the museum, it was built in an upside down cross. And some believe it was built that way to remind the inmates they were unworthy.
Well, just looking at the pictures, it looks like the cross is right in the center.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
You pull up an aerial picture.
I don't want to pull up an aerial picture.
Okay,
I know what it looks like.
We can do this later.
I know what it looks like.
And she'll have to put in a little blurb.
You haven't watched any YouTube.
I haven't. I've watched YouTube before.
No, but not on this.
Not on this.
This is what we do. We can do this for 30 minutes and we're going to lose our whole listenership, all 20 of them. So moving on. The people that ran the area believed that they built it as an upside down cross because they were unworthy. It was like a reminder to these inmates that they did not
I'm not
matter.
discounting that they believe that.
The mining remained the prisoner's sole mission until 1960s. Minimum security prisoners were given jobs at a volunteer fire department, and that they ran that fire department. Those prisoners did from 1974 till 1994. This is just a little facts about the prison now this prison was open until 2009.
Yeah.
There was a part of the prison that was known as the hole, and it was to punish inmates. And this is why it was funny when the necrometer said blind. They would put these inmates in the hole for up to 30 days, and some of these prisoners would go blind because they kept it in complete darkness.
Yeah. They ended that in the 60s, didn't they? Or was it the 80s?
I don't know.
At some point, they did away with the hole.
When you were in the hole, you know what they fed you?
No.
Okra greens boiled to mush. They called it the green monster.
Ah.
Sounds disgusting. So just some facts about the prison. Some more facts, I guess I should say. There were a lot of diseases that went through the prison, including tuberculosis, typhoid fever, pneumonia, and syphilis.
Yes.
The majority of the people that had syphilis were African American inmates, and they didn't have any medical care. Very, very poor medical care and treatment, and inmates were routinely beaten for underproducing in the mines despite their dire health conditions.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how they felt. They put them to work, and if they didn't produce, they beat them.
Yeah.
And some of them would just die in there. There's over 10,000 documented deaths on the property at the prison.
That's crazy.
10,000.
That is crazy.
Over 2,000 of those bodies are still on the property.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why there's a dark energy there.
I have no idea. And then so during the time that the prison was in operation, so from 1896 until 2009, 250,000 prisoners came through the prison. So Tennessee, the state of Tennessee claims that they gave the families of the men that were dead on the property ample opportunity to come and claim their bodies. And then the ones that are still there are the ones that were not claimed. However, once all of this kind of came out, the family members of some of these inmates said they were notified that the person had died and they didn't claim them within like 2 to 3 hours, and these guys were thrown in a hole.
Wow.
So they didn't have time to come and claim their bodies because these turnaround times was 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, there wasn't email for much of,
No.
Right. The availability or the ability to communicate within 2 or 3 hours was nearly impossible for much of its history.
No, you could call, but if you weren't around, you had to leave a message, or if there were no, answering machines were a thing of the 80s and on, you weren't home, then you just have to call back. And it doesn't sound like the guards had much of a incentive or the gumption or whatever that, I need to call these people back.
No.
You didn't answer, move on, throw them in a hole.
Yeah.
They didn't care. They didn't care about these guys.
No.
It was horrible. So I was listening to a tour on the Paranormal Files because, I love Collins. And the reason I love Collins' channel so much, the thing that he does differently, he goes into like an 1.5-hour tour on the first part of his videos. And the tours are so informative. They are coming from tour guides. And like here, this prison, this museum now, actually has former inmates and guards doing the tours.
That's crazy. I know there's a 4-hour day tour, and then you can do a 8-hour overnight tour.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I don't know if I could be there at night.
Let's do it.
I don't know if I could do it at night.
Let's do it. I was wondering if you would want to do it.
I don't know. I can't even lie. I don't know.
That would be cool.
Over time, the prison became the most violent prison in the state. or in American history is what I read.
I don't doubt it.
And it is not just Colin from Paranormal Files said this, but the prison is known to be home of some demonic possession. So there is a very dark energy in there, which, I mean, I believe.
Well, going back, I guess it was in the 1960s, most of the prisoners that went there, it was the end of the line. They were
by that point, they
were prisoners that had committed murder in prison that other prisons could not.
They can't maintain them. Yeah.
James Earl Ray was
we'll get there.
Was a guest.
Mm-hmm.
But
he was there for a long time.
It was the worst of the worst.
Yep.
And you put them all in a old dilapidated building with guards that didn't care, with a bad history, and
then you put them all in there together and take away their, pretty much you take away their health, you take away their sight, you take away any source of good, healthy, nutritious food.
Like work them to the bone.
Yeah, you work them to death. I mean, of course there's negative, but there's, from what the tour guy said, that there was an actual demonic possession that took place of somebody who was just visiting. So it was called the end of the line for most of the inmates. A lot of them that went there, they did not leave. They were sent there because they had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
It was the highest security prison, and if they could not handle them, they just went there.
I think something I read said it was the first maximum security prison in Tennessee.
Probably. I think that is true. I didn't write that down. At one point, there was a group called the Magnificent Seven. They were a group of prisoners who went through the prison killing African-American inmates. They had smuggled in a gun into their cell. They had overpowered the guards, bust out of their cell, and walked through and just started shooting into these cell blocks. Like, these men were sitting ducks. They had nowhere to go.
Two of the men survived.
Yes.
And they were huddled in the corner behind their bunk, behind their mattress.
They put their mattress up.
And they ended up surviving.
Now, it is... What the tour guy said in that video is that they also had a gun, but another gun was never found. So the inmates over time were allowed to practice whatever religion they wanted to, including satanic worship.
That's a good place for satanic worship.
But yes, so the prison did not regulate because over time, practicing of religion became a right.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't regulate whatever you did. So if you were Christian, if you were Muslim, if you were satanic worshiper, like, they just allowed you to do whatever.
They just let it go.
And that they also believe that could be why there is such darker energies on the property.
We have a lot of competing spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
In a very horrible place.
And then once the building was vacated in 2009, they closed down the prison and they sent the prisoners that were still there to other prisons in the area. And the building sat vacant for a while, and just kind of people broke in and did rituals and made sacrifices within the building. The tour guides on the show on YouTube that I watched said that they still found like sacrificial animals on the property. Like, they will go sometimes and just find dead animals on the property. So it's still happening.
I wonder if some people like go out in the grounds around the prison and are
maybe
doing those. I mean, I think that's very possible. Mm-hmm. Trying to get as close as they can to do these rituals.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Okay. So do you want to go into the famous prisoners of the prison and then get into the hauntings? Or
let's go through. Obviously, I think the biggest one was James Earl Ray, who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. And then there were some other ones. I don't know their names, though.
Well, just some history of James Earl Ray. He killed Martin Luther King Jr. He was convicted of that, sentenced to 99 years. He escaped at one point in 1977 with 6 other inmates. They were on the run for 2.5 days, but the elements kind of got him.
Yeah, and he actually tried to escape before that. He had basically was able to remove one of the concrete blocks in his cell, and it led to the steam pipes. So he had to come back, because if he hadn't, he would have died. He would have basically been cooked by the steam.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, the escape after that.
Mm-hmm. He got out.
He got out, and the guards actually said that he was a likable, charismatic guy.
Asshole.
But other than trying to escape, he was
being a murderer.
He wasn't really a bad prisoner.
Okay, so he was an upstanding prisoner. Good for him.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying what I read.
Well, he was stabbed 22 times in 1981 by 3 other inmates.
And he survived.
He sure did. And some say that it was payback for killing Martin Luther King, and others believe it was just him trying to get back into the public eye.
Yeah.
In 1992, he was transferred out of Brushy, and he died in 1998 in a prison in Nashville.
Yep.
Another one was Stephen Hewley. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. He was convicted for killing his mother and another inmate and a prisoner counselor. I saw a video with him in it, and that man is psychotic.
Oh, I need to watch that.
He's scary. Big man, tattoos like on his face. He is mentally...
What year was that?
I think it's in the 90s.
Okay.
Oh, and going back to James Earl Ray, they escaped, him and the 6 other inmates, actually because the terrain is so difficult and you can't be out there in the elements without planning.
Yeah.
It inspired one of the most difficult ultra marathons in the world. It's called the famous Barkley Marathons.
Yes.
And they hold it in the adjacent Frozen Head State Park. Part of the course of the race goes through the prison grounds.
Yeah, it's I've watched documentary on that, and the percentage of people that actually complete it each year is extremely low.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I might go for a tour, but I'm not doing a marathon. I don't run.
People end up in the hospital every year, multiple people.
Like, why? Why? Why?
I want to say it's like a 72-hour marathon.
That sounds like a giant no for me. There's another inmate. His name was Brian Low Tax Looper. He was a politician who had changed his name to literally be Low Tax in parentheses.
I read that. Like I think he was a con artist in Georgia, and then he moved up to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. He kind of bounced.
He ran for multiple offices, and he finally won.
1996, he became the property assessor.
Yes.
In Putnam County.
Yep.
He didn't participate in any debates, yet he won.
Well, he tried to hold a lot of press conferences. One of the things he did was he tried to call out there was like $100 million in taxes that were being withheld, and it ended up being like that's just like an accounting thing that happens every year. But he was trying to point it out as like fraud within the county government.
Well, because he did that, what he did was put himself right on the TBI radar, and they started investigating him for corruption. He was running for another office. I can't remember what it was, but he drove out to his opponent. That's the word I'm looking for. His opponent's farm and shot him in the head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his name was Tommy Burks, and he drove out while he was under investigation for corruption and shot his opponent right in the head, killed him, and he was convicted.
Wow.
Yeah, his psychopath.
Oh, Low Tax.
And if you look at him, he looks like he'd be like your little neighbor.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
in New Balances.
I agree with low taxes.
I'm all about low tax, but I'm not going to change my name to it.
Or shoot somebody in the head.
Or that. I would never.
So then you become a tax burden.
Yes, that is true. He died, I believe. I don't have it in here, but I think he died in prison as well. He was not put to death. He just died of...
So sad.
Oh, yeah. I'm crying over here. Another famous prisoner, and there's a lot of podcasts, I believe, about this guy. His name is Paul Dennis Reard, R-E-I-R-D. He was known as the fast food killer. He was convicted of killing 7 fast food workers and given 7 death sentences, which was the most ever handed down in a single case in Tennessee.
Yep, I did read about him.
Another was Thomas the Zoo Man Husky, nicknamed Zoo Man by local prostitutes because he liked to have sex behind the zoo. Convicted and sentenced to 66 years for killing and raping 4 women in 1992.
I guess he really liked the zoo.
He did really like the zoo.
He was a dirty animal. And it's funny, he liked the zoo and he ended up in a cage.
He ended up behind bars where he belonged.
Yep.
And then you had the Lily Lid killer. There was more than one. I looked into this briefly, and it was like a family that was murdered. And there were multiple killers, but the male was 14 years old. And he ended up in this prison.
So there was a family of murderers?
No. There was a family murdered
by
like 2 or 3 individuals.
Okay, and the youngest one of those was like 14. He ended up in Brushy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was interesting. There was an inmate. Now, it wasn't like we know him, but his name was James Slagle, and he was in there for kidnapping and murder. He practiced yoga every day, and eventually he practiced it enough to pack himself in a box. Packed himself in a box labeled 153 pounds of roast beef, and he shipped himself out of the prison in a box.
Nickname should be Reuben.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
He packed himself up, UPS'd himself right out of there. They did catch him shortly after, but it was very clever. Like they knew him for doing yoga every day in his cell. And he shipped himself out of there as 153 pounds of roast beef.
You know what? I got to say, that's awesome.
I mean,
that's awesome.
But he was in there for kidnapping and murder, so he's not awesome.
I mean, he's not awesome, but that's an awesome feat that he pulled off.
One last little little thing about this is, in The Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter is offered a transfer to Brushy Mountain in exchange for providing information about Buffalo Bill.
Hello, Clarice.
Hello, Clarice.
Have the lamb stopped screaming?
Oh, God, shut up. That's horrible. You always give me like the EVGBs when you do that. Let's go to the hauntings. Now, there's tons of hauntings. I could not get them all, but these are just some of the ones that I found while watching YouTube videos and reading about it.
Yeah, I didn't go into any of this because I figured you would
I appreciate that.
Enlighten me.
I will.
So I'm very interested to hear some of these.
One of the ones that is seen to tours, to people that work there, to just, it's quite known, is the smoking inmate. The smoking inmate is believed to be Johnny Baxter, who was stabbed by his inmate lover, and he died while smoking a cigarette. So I can't remember the details, but I'm not sure if he was just stabbed or if he had his throat slit. And he walked up to the guard after being attacked by his inmate lover and asked for a cigarette and was smoking it while he died. People report seeing puffs of smoke and smelling smoke in the area in which he died.
Oh, wow.
People see shadow figures, like giant shadow figures. They will see them everywhere. And they'll hear knocks, bangs, doors slamming shut, like all sorts of things, which is a little unsettling.
To say the least, it's a little unsettling.
Just a little. People report hearing growling coming from the prison.
I'm sure there was growling when it was open.
Oh, yeah. I have been to a prison because of this, what I used to do for work. And it is to walk in there and have that door slam behind you and know you can't get out.
It's ominous.
And yeah. And so already kind of sets the mood. And I was in a minimum security prison when I went.
Not a good mood.
No, not a good mood.
Not the kind of mood I set.
Oh, no. Stop it. Throwing me off.
We could get handcuffs though.
Shut up. My mama listens. And your mama might listen. Stop it. Ew. So, oh my God, where I was. But yeah, so when I was in a minimum security, some of those people, they don't care. They don't care how they look. They don't care how they sound. They're bored. And they will growl, scream, make inappropriate comments. Like, so this is a haunted prison. And then you all of a sudden just have people claim being touched.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes. Scratched. I have never been scratched, but I've been touched by a spirit. And it feels like spider webs.
I've been scratched.
By a ghost?
No.
Okay, here we go. The auditorium, which was once the hospital, is believed to be the most negative place in the prison, according to tour guides.
Well, I mean, do they put like shows on? Like, why do they need an auditorium?
Most prisons have auditoriums. They bring in speakers, they bring in bands to play. Like, remember Johnny Cash went into a prison and played for inmates?
I know that, but I didn't know they actually had like auditoriums.
That's what they call them. I mean, it could just be a cafeteria. With like a little platform, But the way they described it, Mr. must be correct. Have you noticed the REM pod hadn't done anything?
Yep.
The creeper, they're said to be a creeper, crawls on the floors and the walls and the ceiling.
That's creepy.
It is a giant shadow figure thing with eyes and just crawls. You'll see it crawling at you or up a wall. No, that sounds like a no for me.
Big no.
Big no.
Hard pass.
A possession is said to have happened in the auditorium. The tour guide that witnessed it said that it was a friend of hers that came and he was performing a song, like a 3-minute song. And within that song period, he started acting funny. His eyes rolled back in his head for 45 minutes and he was gurgling and making death noises. He was acting very aggressive. And when he was removed from the prison, he came out of it and has no memory of what happened. That gave me chills.
That's freaky.
They said the next day he was covered head to toe with bruises.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that guy, and then, that wasn't during the prison day. That was...
What was it? Yeah, I was wondering when was that?
If she said a date, I didn't hear it, but it was during the time it was doing paranormal tours.
Okay.
So the tours began after 2018.
Okay, it's been the last couple of years.
I think so. I could be wrong. Okay, paranormal investigators have, when they have their spirit boxes on in there, they hear get out a lot of the times. And inmates and visitors, they also report seeing ghost cats, which I didn't mention this in the history. There was a deer that fell off of a cliff into the yard and the inmates nursed him back to health.
I did see that.
Geronimo.
I didn't. That's funny.
That's funny.
I saw that, but I didn't really read into it too much.
Yes. And when the prison was actually disbanded and they sent out, like the inmates made a huge deal about the deer.
Yeah.
So the state of Tennessee transferred the deer with the inmates, but the deer did not do well. and there were no reports of what happened to the deer after that. He was injured on the property and he had to have a leg amputated, and that's when they decided that Geronimo couldn't stay with the inmates.
Yeah.
It wasn't safe. I didn't want to know, so I didn't read. I'm just going to believe that Geronimo lived his little tripod life out happily.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm going to believe. Let's see. People have been scratched. One guest said the Lord's Prayer and had 3 scratch marks down her back after reciting the prayer. That's freaky. Visitors have been choked. Some get sick, like physically ill. They have their hair pulled. A bull man has been seen. Now, the bull man is said to present itself to children, which is why are children in there? Question. But if you Google it, it is terrifying. It is a bull man. Just look it up. Like it is.
Like a minotaur?
I guess. It's got horns, like a ram.
Half man, half horse.
The D block where the inmates went for isolation, it is said to be super haunted. It was so haunted they had to shut it down because it was so dark in there and people were getting injured and sick. And so
the tours and stuff?
Yes, they closed it off so where you can't get in there. And I don't know how soon or how long ago that was or if it's reopened, but at one point they had to shut it down for investigations and tours because it was so dangerous, so haunted. And they believe that after they shut it down and the people weren't going in there, the hauntings moved to the auditorium.
Interesting.
So that is just some of the hauntings of Brushy.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of activity. A lot of people have been there, done investigations. They're open. They're open to people coming and doing investigations, which I think is very cool.
Mm-hmm. You know, I love a location that leans into its history.
They are like, they're not just leaning into it, they're pulling the cart.
Oh, they sure are. In 2018, it opened as some entrepreneurs had bought it and turned it into a concert venue, a distillery, which I thought you would enjoy.
Yes.
And a restaurant. End of the line tours. How clever. End of the line tours are offered by former guards and inmates. Daytime tours and overnight tours are available. And you have to be 18 years or older in order to participate and be able to sign a waiver. They do allow 16 and 17-year-olds to go, but a parent has to be with them.
Well, we're going to have to make a visit.
Yes, we are. Now, to check out kind of a 360 tour without going to the prison, if that's your thing, go to Abandoned 360 website, and they are really cool panoramic 360 pictures where you can go and see it without leaving.
It's like interactive. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It is very cool. I found that and I looked at it. I'm gonna have the link to that website down in the show notes. So if you want to go check it out.
Very cool.
It is
very
cool.
Interesting place. Definitely somewhere I want to visit.
I do too, and it's not far from here.
No. What, 4 hours, 3 hours?
I think it's about 4 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not far from here. It could be done, weekend trip, maybe like a little
overnight.
3-day trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go up there, stay somewhere in that area, and then do the tours one day.
Very cool.
Yes. So Brushy, the end of the line, where you did not want to go.
No. Very ominous. Just thinking about it, I kind of get creeped out, to be honest.
The videos that I've seen on YouTube, because I've watched, most of the ones that I've watched have gone there. And it's weird because all of what they get, the evidence they get, are very similar.
Yeah.
And so that just leads me to believe that most people that go there
are experiencing similar things.
Yes. Definitely seems like a place we can go during the day.
Overnight.
I know. You and overnight. Let's do overnight.
I'm totally down to do the overnight.
I know you are, but sometimes it doesn't matter if it's nighttime. We have stuff happen during the day sometimes.
I'm just saying an overnight would be really cool.
Go for it. You do you, boo.
I could just sleep on bunk beds in a cell.
I don't sleep at home. What makes you think I'm going to sleep in a prison cell that's haunted? I'm a woman. I'm not sleeping. Clearly, you're crazy. See, the REM pod hasn't gone off once. Not even the temperature change. Not once.
Thank y'all for listening. Hope you enjoyed at least learning about Brushy Mountain.
Yeah, it's really cool. Google it. Go check out that website. And it is an upside down cross. I don't care what he says.
We will be looking at aerial pictures.
He will be looking at aerial pictures, and I'm going to die on this hill.
Okay.
But yes, if you have your own ghost gossip, you can send it to me at ghostgossip247@gmail.com. You can follow me on TikTok as long as TikTok is open at Ghost Gossip Pod. And then on Instagram, Ghost Gossip Podcast. I might have mixed those two up, but you'll see me in there telling you to shush. That's my picture.
Yeah.
Daniel took that picture.
I did.
He did a good job. Mm-hmm. And I edited it and everything. But yes, thank you as always for listening. And next time we're going to have a listener happenings episode.
Exciting.
I got emails. I can't wait to tell you about them.
Looking forward to that.
Until next time, they'll see you later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
I can get higher. Do I need to talk like this?
You don't need to sing.
Is this better?
Yes.
I need to talk like this.
Yes.
Feel like I'm yelling.
You're not.
Okay.
But this is a good level for you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.